Hello and welcome to Channels Book Club. I'm Olakunle Kasumu. It's great to be back on the show again. Please feel free, if you have not joined us on any of our social media platforms, please feel free to do so. On your screen, you can see our Twitter details, Facebook details, Instagram details. We announce things we are going to do on this show on those platforms. But not only that, we talk about new books, new authors, book events, information. We share information, announcements, all sorts of things on those platforms. And there are quite a lot of things you will enjoy on our Instagram page, Facebook page, Twitter handle. So please feel very free to join us on those platforms. In the last few episodes, we've been looking at memoirs and autobiographies. Last week, we looked at a memoir written by Chief Mrs. Taiwo. In fact, the last two episodes, we had part 1 and then part 2 of that review with her. For those of you that watched it, I hope you had fun doing so. Next week, we'll be looking at another memoir written by a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Baribe. It's titled Made in Aba. We gave you a bit of a tip of that last week when we showed you his reading. But next week, we'll be looking at the full interview. You may want to look out for that. But today, we are going completely off course, somewhere we've never gone before. So we've looked at politics, we've looked at finance, we've looked at business, we've looked at all sorts of things on this show. We've looked at different works of fiction, but we've never looked at marriage as a topic. Marriage. Now, I like to say that marriage is taking a beating in the world we live today. Traditional marriage is taking a real beating. When I was young, it was a lot simpler. Man marries woman, they live happily ever after. But these days, that has all changed now. We've looked at a memoir where the theme of the memoir was the marital life of the author. But we've never looked at marriage as a topic. And this is the first time we are doing that. This book, titled Essentials of a Successful Marriage, a step-by-step guide by Abiola Shoremekun, is our focus today. It's loaded. Let's get to meet Abiola Shoremekun and then get into the interview we had with her. Abiola Shoremekun, nice to have you on Channels Book Club.
Thank you, Kunle. I'm happy to be here.
It's great to have you here. Okay. This is the first time we are looking at a book on marriage, Essentials of a Successful Marriage, a step-by-step guide. Well done.
Thank you. That's very interesting.
Well done. But the marriage institution is under, some people will use the expression under attack globally.
Yeah.
The divorce rates up there. A lot of young people, you are talking to them and they're asking you, why should they get married? They don't have to get married, Young ladies will tell you as long as they are financially independent and they can have a baby, why do they need to get married?
Yeah.
The celebrities and superstars, they have live-in arrangements rather than marital arrangements, a lot of them. So you see them living with their girlfriends or their boyfriends for many years, and all that. So there has been this change in thinking with regards to the traditional marriage institution. Is this something you have observed?
Yes, and that's one of the reasons why I'm writing this book. That marriage can actually be happily ever after. You see that theme recurring in my book. And I want to say that our age, or let me just say, from the time our age we've really failed the generation. I mean, marriage has moved from what it used to be to what is not supposed to be. I want to believe that a lot of people go into marriage with a lot of misconceptions. You know, they just feel that when they get married, successful marriage just falls automatically into their laps. Some people are even in love with the idea of being married and actually the marriage itself. They do not know that when you go into marriage, it's actually a lot of work. You need to work at it because marriage is a blend of two people coming from different backgrounds. I mean, you have different values. You grow up in, I mean, different, I mean, with the different ways of doing things. And then you want to come together and live as one person. So how do you think you are able to do it successfully if you are not ready to work out your marriage? Okay? So the reason why a lot of people are not interested in marriage is because the society has failed in marriages. You know, marriage is not being portrayed in the way that it should be. But I want to tell you today that successful marriage is still possible. The only thing that you have to do is work at it. Okay? Work at it.
That's interesting because, I mean, this thing I said about young people, I don't know if you've met them.
Yeah.
It's amazing. If you are on social media, for example, I see a lot of tweets, you know, or maybe Facebook pages, you know, and I'm reading them and I want to ask, it's a completely different idea of marriage now. One, like I've said, is, you know, I don't have to get married. The other one is, if I get married and I have a problem, I get out of it, you know. So it's so easy now. A lot of people who've been married for just 2, 3 years, 4 years, even I've had a couple of months of marriage. Phew.
Yeah.
You know, at the slightest stress or problem, phew, it's ended.
Yeah.
So there is a problem with that, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
There is a problem which you have
Yes.
highlighted now.
Yes. And one of the problems is actually the commitment, and that's why the marital vow comes in. A lot of people don't take, you know, they just, the day they get married, the day they make those marital vows, I think they just make it maybe just like a ceremonious thing. I mean, your marital vow says you promise to hold. It's actually a commitment. So what is marriage? Marriage is two people, you know, coming together and saying, look, we're ready to go the long run and not give up on each other. You know, forgiving each other's mistakes and going the long run together. Once you're able to commit to your marriage, once you're able to tell yourself that, look, this is what I want for my marriage. I was young, and when I was young, I come from a polygamous home, a broken home, and I know what I went through. And I made a silent vow as a child then that when I do get married, I would make sure that I do not go through what my mom went through in marriage. Neither would I allow my children go through the same. So it was a commitment that I make. So if you make that commitment to yourself and say, look, I love this person and I'm going to go the long road with this person, that's just what it needs. Once that commitment is there, other things come into play. Like I said, I mean, in my book, I mentioned, I mean, some essentials. Like I said,
Yes,
it's
yes.
not really, really exhaustive. And really, you know, before I start my topic on marriage, I always say one thing. You know, I always start by saying one thing, that I'm not here to blow my trumpet. Neither am I claiming to know it all, because there are so many people who've been married longer than me, so many people who know more than me. But I'm here to share knowledge, and I'm here to impact the generation, and I'm here to leave a legacy. And I'm here because I received a calling, you know, to actually do this thing. You know, if you've been married a long time and you've been able to work at your marriage and you've been able to have a successful marriage, by the way, there are no perfect marriages.
No perfect marriage. No
But
perfect
a successful
marriages.
marriage,
Yeah.
like I said, two people coming together, telling themselves they want to go on the long run, and committing themselves to the fact that they will never give up on themselves and they will forgive each other's mistakes. So that's basically what marriage is all about.
My other, I mean, follow-up question I wanted to ask after that first question.
Okay.
I think when we delve into some of the things you've written here, I
Yeah.
think the answers to that question will come naturally.
Okay.
You know, so let's look at a few interesting things rather that I observed here.
Okay.
One of the essentials of marriage, for successful marriages, that you put here is communication. You know, and I will read something you wrote here from page 17, I think. Yeah, 17. From the marriage point of view, communication harmonizes a husband and a wife together in thoughts and actions, just as the sexual act does to their bodies.
Oh, yes.
So every marriage is consummated by sexual acts, which binds and bonds the two together as one. The aim, goal, and purpose of communication is a fusing together of thoughts, likes, and attitudes through words and actions.
Yeah.
This is really true,
Yeah.
isn't it? You take effective communication out of marriage, and the marriage is gone, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. Communication is just talking. It's the bridge. It's the live wire. Just as the vegetation needs the sun to survive, marriage needs communication to survive. And what are the aspects of communication? Listening to each other, verbal communication, non-verbal
Non-verbal.
communication. And the real big aspect of communication is listening. And I tell you, Kunle, listening is actually an art. To listen to someone, you need to pay attention to that person, let that person talk, and then affirm what that person has said. That, do you mean, is this what you're saying? And then at the end of the day, respond appropriately. So a lot of us don't listen to each other. We don't listen to what our spouses are saying. You need to sit down and listen to what your spouse is saying. What your spouse is saying. Let me give you an example. There have been several instances of people telling me that maybe they ask my husband a question and I'm not there. And he gives the same answer that I would also say at a different time. Because we've been together, so we've learned to understand each other. We talk to each other. Communication is actually the lava. It's a bridge that connects. I've heard of marriages. In fact, there was a time when a friend was telling me that she wasn't communicating with her husband and they were communicating with their phone and text. I said, look, as long as you're not communicating, that marriage is as good as dead. And yeah, like I said, within 2 years, they were off. So as long as you're still talking, there's still hope. If I'm not talking to you, then that means I'm not interested in you. But as long as I'm still talking to you, I'm interested in you. Just like us, we talk to our children because we want them to do well. You keep talking, because you want them to do well. The day you stop talking to someone, that means they're not interested.
Yeah.
So communication is actually very,
Maybe
very
that,
important.
I mean, that's probably why when two people who are having relationship problems,
Yeah.
when they go and see maybe a psychologist or a counselor,
Yeah.
The counselor gets them talking. The counselor hardly says a lot.
Yeah.
You say your mind.
Yeah.
You say yours. And as they talk,
Yeah.
as they keep talking and expressing themselves,
Exactly.
they keep mending fences and all that.
Yeah.
What is in your opinion, what's the biggest challenge that people have when it comes to communicating in marriage? Why don't people communicate very well in marriage?
I think people make a lot of assumptions, Kule. People assume, and I tell you, assumption is it destroys marriages. I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm assuming that you should know one thing, and you're not telling me that thing that you want me to know. Why don't you just tell me? Marriage is a blend. I mean, two people coming from different directions, different backgrounds, different upbringing, different values. Even you, I mean, as a person, you still fight with your, siblings when you were growing up, you have siblings that you used to have misunderstandings with. Siblings that we've known each other from life, from the time when you were
when I was growing up,
yeah,
even till now, we still have our hassles.
You still have your issues. So I'm not saying marriage doesn't have issues, but the thing is, you're coming together and you need to live together as one.
That's right.
So you need to tell each other, look, if you don't like this thing, just let that person know. But in a very nice way, they call this sandwich, whatever. There's a way you go about those things. Don't assume somebody ought to know. When you assume,
could the problem partly be the way we've been brought up?
Yeah.
A lot of people are brought up in ways that they don't communicate. They don't learn how to communicate, how to be vulnerable, how to be open, how to be confident in expressing themselves.
Yeah.
And then it shows up later in marriage. Isn't that so?
You're very correct, Kule. During the NSAS movement, you know what the young people were calling us? They said they are the Sorosoke generation, while we were the keep quiet generation. In our own generation, we were brought up to be quiet. We could hardly communicate with our parents. And when you want to communicate with your hands at your back, in very low tones. So we were not brought up to communicate. And I want to believe that also is part of the problem. We don't ask questions. And even when we ask questions, our parents shut us down and they tell us, where did you hear that? And so we go out there and get all sorts of information and then make those information the way of life.
Another thing you mentioned here, and this is trust. Trust is essential for a successful marriage.
Yeah.
And I will like you to say something about that, because from my own personal observation, a lot of marriages break down simply because one of the two does not trust the other, or both do not trust themselves. So can you say a bit about this?
Okay, let me just say something. If you don't trust that person that you want to marry, then you don't have any business marrying that person in the first place. You have to trust. What is trust? It's just that word. It's a word that somebody tells you, I love you, I want to marry you. And then you believe that trust. You stand on that trust that this person has said, I love you, I want to marry you, I will take care of you. So it's based on that trust that you marry that person. So trust is a very, very intangible thing. You don't see it. And it's the same way we have the relationship with God. And that's why the Bible likens the relationship of husband and wife to Jesus Christ and us, because it's just based on that word. I trust you. It's the bedrock. If you don't, you're sitting on that chair because you trust that that chair will not make you fall. So you need to believe. You need to take that trust and then say, okay, because this person has said this, and I trust that this person has said what he means, what he has said, so I will go along with this person, and we will make our home.
Okay, let's reveal everything you've written here.
Yes,
one more thing that I need you to talk about is money, finance. I almost jumped to this chapter when I wanted to start. So that was the first thing I was looking for. Finance. That is so crucial.
Yeah.
And you stated it here. I'm not sure where you got your stats from. I think probably it's based on your observations. But you mentioned that, a high percentage of, or how do I put this now? The money is one of the key reasons why marriages break down, basically. A high percentage of marriages that fail because of money. So, does money matter? You wrote here in chapter 3, and then let me read something you wrote here. It is wrong to think that money is not an issue in marriage. The Bible tells us that if a man wants to build a house, he must first count the cost before he commences the project. The same is true for a man who wishes to go into marriage. You must first count the cost by ensuring that you have the finance to provide the basic things of life: food, shelter, and clothing for both you and your spouse. Okay? Because of our time, what you essentially wrote here is there are two problems. Those who think money is not an issue. So they run into problems.
Yeah.
And then those who make money the central issue in marriage. Yeah. Talk to me a bit about finding that balance for marriage to work.
Okay. So I will start by, before I got married, I saw some of my friends who got married to, people who were rich, already made, and I noticed how they were treated. And I used to talk then to my friends, and they tell me that, look, when you marry a rich man, there's this thing at the back of that person's mind that, did this person actually marry me for where I am? Or is this person marrying me for money? Okay, so moving forward, there are two sides to the story. Money, does money matter? And is money everything? Yes, money does matter, but money is not everything. And just like the Bible says, money answereth all things. But it's not just about money. Otherwise, why would some rich people, people that are actually very rich, why would they still be unhappy? There's so many people who are rich, but at the same time, they're still not happy in their life.
The rich also cry.
Yeah, the rich also cry. So while money matters, it is not everything. What I'm saying here is, before you go into marriage, make sure that you can provide for each other those basic things of life first. like the shelter,
Food.
food, and then the basic things. You don't have to be a multimillionaire before you do that. And then the two of you coming together to say, okay, this is how we're going to plan our finances, going into marriage like that. And then also the other aspect of money being everything is that some people want to make the fact that because money is everything, that person that I want to marry must be rich. But what I'm saying here is, when you want to get married, it is not necessary for you. It is actually not the best for you to make money the anchor on which you want to marry someone. Look for the values you love in that person. Values like, is he honest? Does he have integrity? Who is he? What kind of person he is? Once you go with that person, once you're able to get those values in that person, money would always come.
Fantastic. I have very conservative views about marriage, and I could see that from your writing. We probably share the same conservative views
Yeah,
about
yeah,
the traditional institution of marriage. I'm a bit old school when it
yeah,
comes to
yeah,
marriage.
yeah.
I think that marriage is still very essential. I
Yeah.
think it's still a very important institution.
Yeah.
I think it's still a bedrock.
Yeah.
For any society.
Yeah.
And I think young people need to
Yeah.
look at what you've written here
Yeah.
before they dive into marriage,
Yeah.
or newlyweds who are into marriage.
Okay.
But even for those of us who have been married for some time, it's still a good read. Thank you so much.
Just before we wrap up, let me say something. Marriage, the impact of marriage actually boomerangs in the society. Whether you get married or you do not get married, it affects the society. The family is the smallest unit in the society. So you can tell a society by the kind of marriages that we have. What are we having in the society today? It's because marriages are not what they used to be. So many people are just in love with the idea of getting married without actually working for the marriage itself. So I tell you, as long as you want to go into marriage and you know the values that you're looking for, what you want, you're not going because you're in love with the idea of getting married, or you're not going there because your friend got married or whatever, but you're telling yourself that, look, I want to get married. This is my ideal person. This is the person that I want to live my life with, and we're ready to go at the long run. If 50% of marriages in Nigeria were successful, as I said, Nigeria would have been a different place. So because people are living together and are not doing the stuff the way God wants us to do. When God said the man and the woman should come together and raise a family, and said that, and the Bible also says, sorry, I have to always, because the Bible is it's my manual for life, and it said, children are the heritage of the Lord. The fruit of the womb is his word. I'm not saying that if there are no children in marriage, the marriage cannot be successful. A successful marriage is two people coming along. I didn't say two people, two people with children. I just said two people coming along, ready to go the long run, forgiving each other's mistakes, and committing never to give up on each other. So whether there are children in the marriage or not, it doesn't matter. But when there are children in the marriage and the two of them come together to raise the children in the way that the children should be raised, because God will always ask of you, how did you raise those children? So when you have balanced children coming out from the society, the society will be a better place. And that's one of the reasons why I'm also going on YouTube, talking about marriages, because I want to impact as many people as I can impact. And I want to tell them that this thing is so possible and can live happily ever after.
Thank you so much. I can see your passion oozing out.
Thank you, Kuni.
Thank you so much for giving us this wonderful gift.
Thank you also for this opportunity. I really, really love it. It's a way of just, sharing my knowledge, impacting, like I said, I don't claim to know it all. I'm also still learning. There's people who've been there before me, and I'm learning from them. But with the little I have, there's this later presenter that I used to say this catchphrase, and it actually resonates with me. He said, if each one can reach one, then each one can teach one. What a wonderful nation Nigeria would be. So
fantastic.
This is one of the ways. So I'm happy that I'm reaching so many people now, and I'll be delighted if I'm not here to advertise my books. So if through this I'm able to sell more books, okay for me.
As an author, you should advertise your book. Well, this is where we have to wrap it up today.
Okay,
thank you very much for joining us on Channels Book Club.
Thank you so much.
Nice to have you here.
Thank you, Kunle.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Marriage is very important. It's the bedrock of every society. So many things to learn. Doesn't matter how long. Have you seen people who have been married for 50 years, arguing and fighting? Well, the next minute they've made up because they've learned to live with it. Marriage can be really, really good if you find the right spouse and you learn, all those very basic principles that help relationships, that nurture relationships very well. So this is where we have to end the show today. Unfortunately, we never have enough time. As always, my name is Olakunle Kasomo, and I look forward to being your host again next week. Remember, one great book can change your life. Bye-bye.